right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. You know, when we go through the course of a lifetime and we look at the rules for living and the rules for life, and your rules may come from your religion, they may come from just your own personal philosophy, or maybe something your father or mother taught you. Chances are the one that is probably universal and universally broken, although not 100% universally broken, is the thought that once you've committed yourself to a partner, that you stay true to that partner. It's in the Bible it's called adultery when you don't do that, and we look at this, like, for example, the book that we're about to talk about points out a couple of famous people who've done this, who have been infidel. Committed infidelity. What do you say? How do you say that? Infidelity. And you always feel bad for the spouse. Usually it's the guy. Usually it's the guy who's gone and done something that he shouldn't have done, and then you feel sorry for the wife. Like when Arnold Schwarzenegger did it, you felt bad for Maria Shriver.
Yeah. Right.
And our author makes a wonderful point. There are also some other victims, if you don't mind me using that word here, and that's the children of the couple. Absolutely something maybe we hadn't looked at. We probably have overlooked it. Absolutely. Dr. Dennis Ortman hasn't, and he's bringing it to our attention. He is a clinical psychologist specializing in depression, substance abuse, and individuals who suffer from the trauma of parental infidelity. It says here he was a Catholic priest for 14 years, and he is a best-selling author. The book we're focusing on is called Cheating Parents, Recovering from Parental Infidelity. Good morning, Dr. Ortman.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us today.
Well, my pleasure.
Yeah, so you were a priest, huh?
Yes, I was.
How come you're not?
I decided to get married.
Oh, okay. And once you got married, so you're one of the exceptions to. Is the person who stays faithful the exception to the rule?
Stays faithful to
his spouse or her spouse.
The exception. I don't know if it's exceptional. The numbers are not solid, but probably as many as 40% of men are unfaithful and 20 to 30% of women.
Oh, okay.
And then it depends how you define infidelity too. It could be not just having a sexual affair. It could be, for example, pornography, or women get involved in chat rooms or have emotional affairs. So it's really a broad spectrum.
Oh my goodness, a chat room would be considered being infidel?
Well, it could be, and one of the criteria that I use in talking with couples, he said, well, do you let your partner know what you're doing? And if you feel like you have to hide it, then you know that something's wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. If you're online and you can't say, "Honey, come here, look what this one wrote," you can't do that. Then right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that would make sense. So, would a guy going out hunting with his guy friends, would that be an example of being
just hunting? No, there's nothing. How's that violating the agreement? And his partner knows. Yeah, you're hunting. What's the big deal?
Okay. Well, I'm asking that for a specific reason to twist it a little bit. What if all the other hunters were women? If he and 4 women went out hunting, and they were really hunting, but
if the partner agrees to it, what's the problem?
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then on the other hand, there's girls' night out. I mean, you hear the girls
That's
going
right.
out all the time to bars and stuff like that.
It doesn't mean that you have to avoid the opposite sex. I mean, that's we live in a male-female world. It's that you still control your behavior.
So when we're focusing on the children in this particular book, so do you work with them as a doctor, as a psychologist?
I do. I don't work with the young children. I work with adolescents and adults. And a lot of what I see, the effects of the infidelity, it's not always so apparent when they're young children. And it has what I call the time bomb effect, that the devastating effects becomes more evident when they grow up to become adults and enter into the arena of intimate relationships and become parents themselves. Then all the problems become more evident.
Okay, now why is that?
Well, for one thing, with the children, they need to have an emotional bond with their parents. And so they just absorb what's going on in the family without protesting it too much. And make no mistakes, children are like sponges. They know and pick up much more than parents think that they do. They pick up all the hostility and the tension in the household, and they don't understand what's going on. And often, if there's an infidelity, the parents want to keep it quiet for a lot of reasons. Shame is one. Then they think they want to protect the children, but the children still pick up all of the tension that's going on. And what it does, it plants seeds of both shame and mistrust in them that flower later on in adulthood.
Really? Okay. So have you talked to children, the adolescent children, I guess is how we'll address this, who were the product of not the product of a divorce, but whose parents were divorced, but the relationship with the child and both parents stayed really good. Both parents.
Yes, that can happen. That can happen.
Okay,
right.
So in that example, does that child carry the same baggage as the other child?
Something's different with an infidelity, and what's different about that is it's not just the unfaithful act itself, but it's all the cover-up and the deception and the lying that undermines the trust. So there's a betrayal that's different than happens in just, say, a divorce.
Really? Well,
and that's what affects the children.
There's no question in my mind that all makes sense. There's no debate happening here. So I get. So how do you work with children? Do you also work with parents who are going through this?
Yes, I do.
Is your effort? Do you have the same goal with all of them? Is it to what? Yeah. What would be the goal from your perspective?
When I'm working with say a couple that's going through it, is the number one thing is to clarify the boundaries. What an affair is? It's a boundary violation in the marriage, and this is what you're teaching the children, to ignore boundaries. And sometimes then they grow up to think, well, this is normal and no big deal, but it's a huge deal.
Right.
And so the first order of business is for the parents to clarify the boundaries. That if they have to make a decision, a wise decision, whether or not to continue in the marriage. If the offending partner wants to continue the affair, I suggest to them it's very harmful to everybody involved, because to lead that double life is harmful not only to both the parents, it's extremely harmful to the kids. And so they have to make a decision. And if they decide to stay together, the affair has to end, and then they can focus on their relationship. And what I've observed in most affairs, it's a symptom of an underlying problem in the relationship. So they have to then begin to address that problem. And I found in many, many cases the affair becomes a wake-up call, that they start working at the relationship and at what's been missing, and they can grow stronger and really build the relationship on a firmer foundation than it's ever been.
Well, I would tell you that the fact that you can do that for couples is amazing.
Yes, there's always hope.
Yeah, because most of the time it will end in divorce.
Actually, the statistics are about half the time.
Okay.
If there's an infidelity, half the time it ends in divorce, and half not.
Okay, so I'm speaking off the cuff without really knowing statistics. Yeah. So when the media, and I guess this is entertainment media, they and I'm not blaming them, but maybe I'm asking if I should be blaming them. There was a story. Gosh, I think it was just yesterday that I saw it on the internet, and it was a list of celebrities who have open marriages. And I didn't click on it to read the whole article, but that was what the tease was. That's what the headline said. And I thought, wow, I mean, it's an interesting thing to think that and Will Smith was the face they showed, so I'm assuming he's one of them. But so is that better for the children if there's an open marriage and the children, that's daddy's other lady?
The way I see it, an open marriage is really an avoidance of commitment and avoidance of intimacy.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I'm not.
that's how I see it. It's not a mature kind of love, because a committed relationship requires a huge amount of emotional maturity to be able to work through the ups and downs and all of the conflicts and learn how to resolve conflicts and to grow through those. Requires a huge amount of commitment and maturity.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I really am following you and think you're absolutely on target. I'm wondering if your perspective, and this kind of goes back to where I was with the showbiz thing. Do you think we are? Well, you really can't blame anybody but yourself. So I'll just make that as a
not blame anybody.
But do you think we're being influenced? In is there anything we can do about that?
Well, keep our own house in order.
Yeah.
To focus on ourselves and what's really important to us and our values, and we model those to our children.
So, do you think you yourself, sir, have a good handle on this issue because of your years as a priest, and you've heard so many confessions that you're able to help those that were doing the confessing, and now you're able to bring it out in your book?
Well, I think what I've gained as a priest was a spiritual perspective that's helped me as a psychologist. Because what I've tried to do in my practice is integrate the insights of modern psychology and really kind of traditional spiritual insights from both the East and the West. And that's kind of given me, I think, a deeper perspective to deal with these issues. Because I think ultimately that I wrote in my book, I wrote another book on the impact of fidelity on the partner, and it was called Transcending Post-Infidelity Stress Disorder, PISD, P-I-S-D, that I think the partner is traumatized by the affair and experiences symptoms similar to post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, and in that book, the process of healing is really through the power of forgiveness and all the steps it takes. And then the following book on cheating parents, looking at the impact on the children. In many ways, they're traumatized. They share the trauma of their parents, and ultimately they will be healed as they go through adulthood by coming to forgive their parents.
Wow, you must have been a wonderful priest. Are you still in the church, but not as a priest?
Yes, I'm practicing probably not as regularly as I did in the past, but I'm still a deeply religious and spiritual person.
The book is called Cheating Parents. Dr. Dennis Ortman is our guest. He wrote this book. I want to address the subtitle, which is Recovering from Parental Infidelity. It sounds like the book is for the child.
Actually, it's for the adults. Children aren't going to read the book. It's for the adults, and really, you might say it's for adult children of unfaithful parents. When they come to the point in their lives where they're experiencing conflicts in their own relationships, they can trace its root to their own childhood and be able to work through it. So it's for adults.
Earlier in the conversation, you made it clear that this was not exclusively about the infidelity that we typically think of, a guy dating another woman while he's married to his wife. This could also be, as you mentioned, chat rooms or things like that.
Sure.
There was an episode, I know this goes way back, but we all seem old enough to remember this. On the show The Love Boat, I remember there was a young girl, a character, I think she was Captain Stubing's niece or something, and she asked him whatever happened to his wife. And he said, well, we are divorced. And she said, what happened? He goes, well, I had a mistress. And of course, the look on her face was like, oh my God, you were the guy I admired. I can't believe you had a mistress. And then he says the mistress was the sea. Now, okay. Now, in that case, let's just use that as an example, as a real example, even though it was a TV show. That would upset a family as well. I mean, truly, if a guy is more committed to his job, in this case, it was a ship. But if he's more committed to his job than his wife, that's going to have an effect on the kids too, no?
Exactly. And those are the kind of issues that need to be explored. The affair may be the symptom of that disconnection that occurred long before the affair, and it could be a guy was married to his job.
Wow.
A typical man with a workaholic.
Okay, and in your practice as a psychologist, does that come up infrequently? Is that the lesser of the types of infidelity that you see?
That comes up very frequently.
Oh, it does.
The workaholic, yes. The emotionally disengaged man who's married. I go through the book, typical pattern. One typical pattern is an emotionally disengaged person is married to someone is very dependent and clingy, and this is fertile ground for an affair.
Okay.
And so when the affair happens, you have to understand, well, what led to the affair, and without blaming the offended person. That they're never responsible for it, but there may have been an unhappiness in marriage that had not been addressed, and it could be that, for example, the woman was feeling neglected because the husband was focusing so much on work.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
So that's the underlying problem.
I wonder how forgiving we are as a society. Everybody sins. I mean, that's one of the teachings of Christianity. Everybody is a sinner, right? Nobody can cast the first stone.
Right.
So, but I wonder if we're more forgiving of the woman who has an affair because her husband is married to his job, as opposed to the guy who has a real affair with a woman because his woman is his wife is more married to her job. I wonder which one we're more forgiving. I'm just wondering. I don't know if there's even an answer to that.
You might have a little more sympathy for the person. Yeah, that's true. Without, though, excusing it or justifying it. Because if somebody's unhappy, there's a lot of other ways that they can respond. They don't have to have an affair. They can get a divorce or work on the marriage harder or whatever. Affair is an attempt at a solution, but it's not an effective one. It's a very harmful solution to the problem.
But then sometimes the children will emulate the relationship of their parents. If they see their mom running around and stuff like that, then that's I think the daughter is more prone to do things like that.
Yeah, very definitely. And that's what I noticed. What led me to this book was I was meeting with many couples who are involved in affairs, and as I explored, in a majority, almost not quite unanimously, but close to it, they came from families where their parents were unfaithful. And that struck me. And so what I've noticed is that the pattern of adult children of unfaithful parents, three things tend to happen. They either identify with the aggressor and have an affair themselves, or they identify with the victim and marry someone who cheats on them, or the third is they don't trust people, and so they become emotionally disengaged in relationships. They may marry or not marry, but they stay emotionally aloof. That's the pattern that I see.
One of the examples you give is in your epilogue, and it's about Steven Spielberg. Can you tell our audience about that?
Yeah. Well, Steven Spielberg, his parents were divorced, but they were divorced, but I don't think he knew till later on in life that his mother had an affair. But he blamed his father for being aloof during his life, and the mother, who seemed to understand Stephen, he had more sympathy for her, so he took sides. Uh-huh. But as he grew older, the anger towards his father didn't dissipate, and his wife tried to convince him that this is really harmful, holding this grudge. You're not seeing your father, and look at the effect it's going to have on the kids and so forth. And he reconciled with his father, and he came to understand, well, his mother had been unfaithful, and his healing was he came to forgive both his parents, to see them as human beings and to forgive them.
We had a discussion yesterday about children with diabetes, and there's a camp in our community where they all get together, and when they're not together, they are the unique one. They're the outsider. They've got to take the insulin while everybody else doesn't. But when they're together, they have this bonding thing that happens because they all have to do that. Does that same therapy apply to these young people? And I don't know how you would. I mean, you wouldn't get 19-year-olds to get together and go to camp together. I don't think,
To talk about it.
I'm sorry, they could talk about it.
Yeah, you mean get together and talk about their common experience?
Yeah, does it actually help them perhaps move on so that they have a healthier mental?
Yeah, that's a very interesting idea. I hadn't thought about it. The model that I have is there's a movement called Adult Children of Alcoholics. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah.
And they do have groups that meet together because many adult children are traumatized by the disruption and everything in the family from the alcoholism of their parents. And they meet in support groups. And I could see adult children of unfaithful parents meeting because they've suffered a similar kind of trauma. Disruption in their lives, and they could support each other.
I wonder if the children of divorced parents always know, or is it kept a secret from them? I wonder if they always know who the offending parent was. I wonder if it's because
Well, yeah, they don't, because it's kept, and this is part of the problem. It's kept a secret because of the shame, and what happens with all the secrecy, and that's what that the adult children learn about secrecy in relationships, is it leads to a lot of insecurity and mistrust. And sometimes I've had people, they don't discover till decades later, and they tell me, I knew my parents had problems. I knew there was something serious going on. Now I understand. There was even a TV show, Brothers and Sisters, it was a popular show last year, a couple of years ago, and the premise was Sally Fields was in it. The premise was her husband died, and only at the funeral did she discover that he had a decades-long affair with a woman.
Oh, my.
Oh, wow.
And the devastation, that's the whole drama of the devastation in the family and how they work through it. And so the secrecy, there's a lot of secrecy about it.
And it has to be, the parents have to be treated equally, because it's, to me, I think women are just as much at fault as the men are, and so the children shouldn't automatically think that the mom is the angel and the dad's the bad guy.
Yeah, well, that's ultimately what the healing is giving up the blame. That when children grow up to become adults, ultimately they have to give up blaming their parent for who they were and how they affected their lives, and also give up idealizing them, putting them on a pedestal. Come to see them and accept them as the human beings that they were, with their strengths and their weaknesses. And that's really what forgiveness is. A way I would call forgiveness is letting go of the anger and the desire for revenge. And we forgive for our own sake, because the anger is a poison that ruins our own lives. AA has a beautiful saying about it. Nurturing anger is like consuming rat poison and expecting the rat to die. And so
That's a really astute observation, because the person, it can be the innocent one, but they've got all this anger built up, and it's not hurting anybody but themselves. It's not hurting the guilty party.
That's right. He's going his merry way, and she's being eaten alive by the anger.
Wow.
So we forgive for our own sake.
The Christian singer Amy Grant is divorced from her first husband, Gary Chapman, who was a guest on our show not that long ago. Mm-hmm. She's now married to Vince Gill, just in case you wanted to know. And her embarrassment, her discomfort with this subject is so obvious when she's on any talk show that it's so you can tell she's a real good person, but she feels embarrassed by what happened. And now I don't think any of us know if one cheated on the other. I don't think we know that. But I just want to contrast that to somebody like Hugh Hefner, who has some children. I wonder what their children think.
Yeah.
I mean, in his case, he has a 20-year-old every time you turn around. He's been doing this his whole life.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I feel sorry for the children and for him. That's a sad life.
Yeah.
it's a very sad life.
This is a fascinating topic, and I'm guessing it's hitting home for a lot of people. So I want to make sure that they know how to get the book. We run out of time, and I kind of wish we didn't. The book is called Cheating Parents. Dr. Dennis Ortman is the author. I have a copy of the book. If you would like it, call me. It'll be waiting for you. Doctor, do you have a website, and can you tell us how to buy the book?
Okay, the book's available on Amazon.com. And through major bookstores, you can order it there. And I do have a website, DennisOrtman.com.
Okay, and Dr. Ortman spells his last name Ortman, and the website is already on the guest list for today. If you go to the WOCA site, you'll see it there. Dr. Ortman, thank you. This is a wonderful book. I think you're going to help a lot of people figure out something that they were having a difficult time figuring out.
I hope it is helpful, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. We'll take a little break and be right back.
You're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
On the next Voice of Ocala, it's Pop Culture Thursday. Lori Martin Gregory joins me as we talk all things Hollywood and get you set up for the Silver Spring Film Festival. Plus, Lori Martin Gregory will also have healthy living. And it's around the water cooler. Buddy Martin, myself, Austin Tappan, and Tom James get you set up for the University of Florida's big basketball game against UCLA. All that and more on the next Voice of Ocala, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, streaming live at WOCA.com. The Source.
Are you wasting hundreds or thousands of dollars on termite retreat fees? If you're not with Turner Pest Control, you probably are. Turner Pest Control offers the industry's only termite and pest control package that never charges retreat fees, ever. You can get started today for only $99. This is a value of $500 or more. This includes treatments, installation of monitoring stations, quarterly pest control, and a lifetime guarantee, all for an unbelievable low $99. Even if you have another pest control provider, visit turnerpest.com to find out how you can avoid paying those high termite retreat fees.
When it comes to Truck Month, bigger is better, and nobody has a bigger selection or better prices than Palm Chevrolet of Ocala. And this week only at Palm Chevrolet of Ocala, every truck in our huge inventory will be marked down to our final sacrifice price. We've been instructed by General Motors to eliminate hundreds of new Chevrolet trucks at factory invoice. Plus, you keep all the rebates. You pay less than we pay, with no hassles or negotiations. The price you see is the price you pay on hundreds of new Chevrolet trucks, and you keep all the rebates. Plus, Palm Chevrolet will take any trade, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, regardless of make, miles, or condition. Get fast and easy credit approval, even if your credit is less than perfect, with as little as $0 down. Don't make a $1,000 mistake. Get the lowest price, more for your trade, and the best selection anywhere. Only at Palm Chevrolet of Ocala, 2300 Southwest College Road, exit 350, just east of I-75 in beautiful Ocala.
Plus tax title license. Trade balance carried a new loan with approved credit. Find new roads.
PalmChevy.com.
Hello, gorgeous.
Hi, this is Becky at Hello Gorgeous Salon. We are located in the heart of downtown Ocala, right next to the historic Marion Theater. I'd like to invite you to stop by and see our new boutique area and meet our staff of professional stylists. Here at Hello Gorgeous, we are ready for prom season with updos and makeup. And with summer coming, now's the time to book your appointment to get that Brazilian blowout or start with your summer highlights. But don't stop there. We are a full-service salon offering manicures, pedicures, and facials also. So if you've been searching for a salon to call your own, come and see us at Hello Gorgeous Salon. We are located at 48 South Magnolia Avenue in downtown Ocala, right next to the Marion Theater. So call today and set up your appointment at Hello Gorgeous Salon at 351-5358. That's 351-5358. And don't forget, we also do men and children's cuts too.
Hello, gorgeous.
This is a public notice. Local residents can now save thousands of dollars on their next car, truck, or SUV. It's not a tent sale, because no tent is big enough to hold this many cars. It's OcalaForSale.com. Say goodbye to sticker shock. OcalaForSale.com has thousands of vehicles with no stickers at all. But hurry, don't walk, don't run. Just sit down and log on to OcalaForSale.com. Prices and inventory change daily. Offer does not include dealer upcharge, undercutting, less proofing, factory surcharge, or delivery fee. See website for details.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
So if you lose weight, will your cellulite disappear? Nope. Losing weight can diminish cellulite because there's less fat to pop out, but it will never go away entirely. Marriage isn't always exciting, and couples who understand that and who are confident they can stay happy with their partner even when things are dull are more likely to last. talk as if your grandma is listening. Anything you wouldn't mention in front of her, don't mention at work.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
The Bridge at Ocala will be holding a charity raffle night on May 15th from 7 until 9 p.m. Proceeds will support Habitat for Humanity of Marion County. It's a fun-filled evening with entertainment, hors d'oeuvres, and beverages, and your participation will be greatly appreciated. Currently, we're seeking donations for the raffle, gift certificates, electronics, gift baskets, spa and beauty services, pretty much anything you would like to donate. Call Lori at 352-873-2036 for more information or pledge a donation. Help us help Habitat for Humanity.
Hello, I'm here to tell you a little bit about the Ocala Leads Group. We meet the first Monday of each month right here at the WOCA studios. We are open to all business people that need to connect to each other and network to help this fine community grow. Again, the name is Ocala Leads Group, and we meet the first Monday of each month at 12:07 p.m. right here at the WOCA studios. Questions? Call 732-8000. Please, make the time to grow.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 6 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Thursday morning. This is a story out of Texas. I don't know all the details. This is a few days ago. An oil tanker had collided in Galveston Bay. Up to 168,000 gallons of fuel oil spilled into the Gulf of Mexico, and it's really wreaking havoc on the beaches. And mostly, I think it's like a 15-mile span in Texas, so it's confined. But it's never really confined. They always say this, and what happens is the wind and everything that pushes the oil, in a certain direction. But it doesn't push all of the oil. There's always oil that goes elsewhere, and that this is true. I mean, just think about it. It just sounds true. I mean, it rings true, right? I mean, the Exxon Valdez incident, when it struck a reef, that was 1989. And our next guest is going to tell you that even that is still a problem. So this stuff is a big thing to think about, and I don't know what to do about it. I drive my car. And I know I need gasoline and oil and all that. Dan Chu is who I'm referring to. He's on the phone. Hopefully we've got a good connection with him. His bio says he's the senior director for the Sierra Club's Our Wild America National Campaign. And he is on the phone to talk to us about oil and gas activities that continue to threaten our environment, especially up in Alaska, the Arctic area, up in the North Pole area, and even here. I mean, we had this issue with the beaches. We didn't see any on the beaches that you and I went to visit.
Right.
When I say we, I mean just Robin and me.
Yeah.
We went to the beach to see if we could find the tar balls, the oil, whatever they were calling them back.
Yeah.
In the other one, what was that called again? What were they calling that one? The big oil spill underground, under the water.
Oh yeah, I can't remember.
Oh my goodness, Horizon. What was it called? Horizon?
Yeah, I think
whatever.
Horizon.
I always forget the name of these things. Dan Chu. I've got your name in front of me, so I won't forget your name. Good morning, Dan.
Hi, how are you? Hopefully this is okay. I'm standing outside the Capitol, actually, in between meetings, so hopefully this sounds fine.
It sounds okay. You're at the Capitol. You're in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Are you there to talk about this very topic?
Actually, not kind of yes, kind of no. I'm talking to a couple of folks on the Hill about some oil and gas development out west, more in Colorado and Wyoming areas. So,
oh, really?
But it's all together, But yeah, the Exxon Valdez, that spilled about 11 million gallons, which is almost 100 times more than that spill that just happened in Houston a few days ago. And to this day, there's still they estimate about 9,000 gallons of that oil 25 years later under all the rocks on the beaches there. It affected about a shoreline equal to the length of California, about 1,300 miles. And, as you know, devastation on a lot of wildlife species. And but to this day, there's still some that are not recovering. So, for instance, there's a pod of 22 killer whales that are specific to the Prince William Sound, and ever since the spill, they haven't had a single calf, and they've decline to about 7 older killer whales, and they will all pretty much die out because they can't have young anymore. And then the herring industry also really crashed, which was really important for the community there, but it also was very important for much of the wildlife and the food chain there, and that herring industry still hasn't recovered, and they haven't allowed fishing pretty much throughout that whole 25 years for herring. So,
right.
These linger, and on average, they say that these oil spills, you recover about 5 to 10% of the oil, and the other 90%, just stays in the water. With the BP oil spill or Exxon, typically what will happen is they will put a lot of detergent to disperse and break up the oil and then have it sink down to the bottom of the ocean. So, most of that oil is at the bottom of the ocean or broken up in the Gulf of Mexico and also in Prince William Sound. And, I agree with you. I too have a car, a couple of cars and drive and need oil and gas, but we also feel like we should continue to push the government and industry to look at investing more in wind and solar power and as much as possible not invest in a lot of new infrastructure for oil and gas development in places where we shouldn't be trying to develop it, like the Arctic Ocean in northern Alaska.
Okay, so see when politics gets involved with this particular issue, it kind of upsets me because I want to hear the facts. I want to, if I'm doing something wrong, I want you to tell me what I'm doing wrong, and then I want to make a decision about what I can do in my personal life to correct it. And if that means riding a bicycle instead of driving a car, of course that's not practical all the time. It might be practical sometimes, and it might be impractical all the time for some people. But I don't like when politics gets in the way and somebody with an agenda tries to tell me that the facts, that somebody's trying to tell me about anything, whether it's global warming or not, or oil spills or not. I don't want political agendas to creep in. I hate that. That's as bad as the oil on the duck feathers that you see in the pictures. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't get anywhere when somebody else is trying to defend a corporation's right to earn money. I mean, we want corporations to make money, but at the same time, we don't want to be ruining the world, our world. So with that said, how do we continue to have the lifestyle we have and at the same time not have a messy environment? How do we do this?
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'd say that a couple of things. One is if you look over the last 8 years or so, the cost of electricity from wind and solar is plummeting down to where it's being much more competitive with electricity from coal and natural gas. And in addition, we've seen recent measures that increase mileage efficiency standards for cars and frankly, I think make us more competitive on the world stage. The more efficient our cars can be, and then our buildings and the efficiency of our buildings. Buildings account for maybe 30% of the total emissions in the country, and there are a lot of efforts from architects down to construction and construction contractors to really look at how we build our buildings or retrofit them so they are much more efficient, use less energy. So, all of those efforts are out there and they're doable. It's just a matter of how much we're willing as a country to invest and really push harder on those, what we think are more sustainable, cleaner options. And then, the other I would just say is what we're concerned about is there are places that just don't make sense for drilling, and there is a proposal from the administration to open up the Arctic Ocean about 120 million acres, an area about 3 times the size of Florida, to oil and gas drilling. Shell Oil's been up there trying to drill over the last couple of years. Exploratory had some real problems.
Well, let's talk about Florida just for a second. Here's why. Years ago, was it during the Nixon administration, they were going to build a canal across the state of Florida.
Yeah. It's
partially built. They didn't finish it, and thank goodness, because had they continued to build that canal, it would have totally broken up the aquifer that feeds the beautiful rivers that we all enjoy right here. And that aquifer, by the way, gives us fresh water to drink. It's not just a place to swim and go fishing and have a beautiful picnic. It is actually our drinking water. Had that had the Cross Florida Barge Canal been made, that would have been the problem. Now they're talking about fracturing in Florida. Mm-hmm. And those who are for it say it's absolutely safe. It will not hurt the environment. And then there are those who are more intelligent than me who disagree with that, who say, no, it's going to hurt. Now, just thinking about this, the statement is that they will drill 2 miles into the earth and then inject fluids or whatever so that they can push out any gas that might be trapped. 2 miles is deeper than the aquifer.
Yeah.
How are you going to drill 2 miles and not affect the aquifer is my question to them. And what am I going to see? What are my children or my grandchildren going to see if this actually happens? What's going to happen to the river that I now hope never goes away? Is it going to be muddy? Is it going to be oily? Is it all the fish going to be dead? What's it going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And
that's right.
And I guess the question I'm asking is the same thing you're asking, is why do we want to do stuff that will hurt the environment when we have alternatives?
Yeah. I think the reality is, and it's back to politics, is there are special interests that have more clout and more money in the political system that are pushing for that result, and so it's. I wish it was common sense and that our leaders made the right decision, but as we all know, unfortunately, they get swayed, and I guess it is part of the democratic society, but they get swayed by people who have a lot of influence and money.
But
asking them to do that.
But Dan, you gave us the answer a little while ago, and it sounded like if it makes money, it'll be the way we go. So if we can have cars that have no more emissions at all, then guess what? That somebody's going to make money selling those cars, and somebody's going to make money creating that energy from the wind and from the sun, and somebody's going to make money doing all those things. Well, we're going to buy them, and that's the only reason it's going to happen, because there's ultimately the marketplace will dictate what we have.
Yeah, I think that's right, as long as it's a fair marketplace. And, there aren't subsidies and other exemptions. So one example is for the fracking that you just talked about. The fracking companies are exempt from the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act, those federal acts. So they don't have to comply with those federal environmental laws when it comes to fracking fluids or when it comes to monitoring water before and after they inject stuff into the ground. And, frankly, that was a lot of effective lobbying and and political contributions that got them those exemptions years ago. So, we're just saying that if you level the playing field, things like that, like the fracking, we can take an honest look at them and say, there are other alternatives that on an even playing field make a lot more sense.
And there will be a lot of safety measures put into place then, so we wouldn't have to feel that residue of the bad part of it.
Right. That's right.
Every about once a year or so, Dan, we speak to a lady up in Barrow, Alaska. Mm-hmm. Is it Inupiat? Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Inupiat?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Is that a tribe?
Yes.
But anyway, she's there. Yeah. She's lived there all of her life. Her family's lived there for generations. And she told a very compelling story about how their livelihood has changed just from what's happened in recent years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's kind of troubling to think about the fact, and that's how they made their living with these whales. Mm-hmm. Now I know there's people who don't want us to hunt whales, but I think if we had enough whales, we could hunt them and have no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, we definitely support sustainable hunting, and also those are cultures that have been there for thousands of years that we have to respect their ways. And in fact, I was just at a hill briefing a few days ago on the spill, and a native Alaskan from up in that area came down and just talked about how they live off the eel and the salmon and the whales, but it's also been increasingly hard to get out on the ice because the ice is melting under them a lot earlier, and there's storm surges and big waves are starting to wash out parts of their community because it's warming a lot faster in the Arctic than it is down here. And in fact, that's one of the there's growing evidence that a warmer Arctic and Alaska is pushing all this cold air down south, and this polar vortex is part of the result of melting sea ice up north.
There are parts of. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So in a way, it's kind of a double jeopardy for folks up there to, if oil and gas drilling does start there, it's extreme. It's impossible to clean up any kind of oil spill way up there in the, in those extreme conditions. And then on top of it, it's on a larger scale contributing to warming of their, the northern part of the world. So.
Well, and if the solution is windmills, if that is, and I'm not saying it is, I don't know, but if the solution is that, and if the solution is other clean energies like solar energy, then once we get to that point, then there will no longer be a need for large ships carrying large amounts of oil across the ocean. Some might argue also that if we were to drill for the oil here in America or up like they're doing in North Dakota with that fracking, I don't know. Some might argue that there would be no ships necessary to bring oil to us from across the ocean if we had it ourselves.
Right. Yeah. So right now, I was looking at figures the other day. About 40% of our oil is produced domestically, and 50% is from other countries. The country that sends us the most oil is actually Canada, and then Mexico's next after that. The Middle East is a fair amount smaller than those two. But what we're saying is just that the reality is when you're transporting a toxic, flammable, dangerous material like oil, you're going to have accidents from time to time. If it's oil spills on the ocean, if it's that train exploding in Quebec that was carrying oil, or pipelines leaking, and we just feel like the amount of investment, both from federal dollars and private dollars, into continuing our use of these products, the more we can put that into clean, renewable energy that is also distributed, so people can generate energy off their own rooftops of their own homes. That in the long term saves us money in public health costs and in emergency response and all those things.
Well, we had a story not too long about a family that was providing their own energy, and they were sued.
Yeah.
By the
city.
By the local.
By the power company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me just reintroduce you, Dan. Dan Chu is our guest. He's the senior director for the Sierra Club's Our Wild America National Campaign. We're talking about oil and gas activities that continue to threaten the northern part of our planet, Alaska, et cetera. Partially some of that from the Exxon Valdez oil spill all those years ago. Because you're in Washington, D.C. right now, if you were to walk in after you get off the phone with us and absolutely convince them to all say, Dan, we want to do it your way, what would that way be? And how quickly, if they all said that, how quickly would we be dependent on something other than oil?
Well, we have a couple of different scenarios. I think to get to 100% clean energy in the electricity sector, so that doesn't include transportation and home heating, we think we could get there by 2030. Pretty aggressive. That's 15 years from now. To get to a oil-free economy that deals with transportation and also home heating, we're looking at a target of 2050, which is about 35 years away. So on one hand, it sounds like a long time away. On the other hand, I've got an 8-year-old son, and 35 years from now, he'll be in his early 40s.
Yeah, sure.
So I think about that a lot as far as my window is just looking at my son and thinking about, 15 years from now, he'll just be getting out of college.
No, absolutely. Does the plan exclude nuclear?
Yeah, we've got a scenario that getting to 2030 or 2050 is not based on nuclear as well. And so it's a combination of great gains in efficiency, both for buildings and transportation modes. Wind and solar power, both distributed and concentrated, installations. And then there's other smaller ones like geothermal and wave powered power and that kind of thing as well that are a much smaller percentage. But there are different models out there that say you can get there. It's just a matter of how much you're willing to kind of do that shot for the moon, if you will, commitment as a nation.
But what was really disturbing about that earlier, you said the killer whales were experiencing sterility. I mean, how many other animals is this happening out there too that we're not aware of, that their species might become non-existent really soon if we don't do something?
Yeah. Well, I was just looking at some research the other day in the Gulf of Mexico, and there's still a lot of lingering problems with dolphins in the Gulf. I think the strandings of dolphins has gone up 4 to 6 times since the spill, because they get liver and heart damage, and then they get sick and they can't swim, and they just get washed up on the beach and die. And same with sea turtles. So those are two that kind of are in the Gulf that are still very much a concern. And then farther out in the ocean, the tuna that the dolphin and others depend on in the Gulf have really crashed. They can't quite tell what it is. I'm sure some of it's overfishing, but some of it is they think is the stress of having that oil and chemicals at the bottom of the ocean.
So if there's a report card given to each country, how do we stand in our efforts to have a cleaner environment compared to China, compared to Russia, compared to other countries?
Well, I still think we are, we're certainly ahead of China and Russia as far as clean environment for pollution and that kind of thing. I will say, though, that China, just over the last number of years, has done a national commitment and is investing billions, if not trillions of dollars in wind and solar power. One, because they just have a lot of cash on hand, to put into this stuff. But two, they're recognizing that the cost to their economy and their populations from smog, because they use a lot of coal, and it's a lot of coal-fired power plants, is really devastating and threatens to knock them off as a superpower. So they are really investing in wind and solar as much for the clean element as it is about national security. And they also see it as an opportunity to export, to countries like us. And so we just feel like, look, we are at a point right now where we could really invest in this and have homegrown jobs for building windmills and solar power, and instead of getting to a point where we've got to import, those windmills and solar panels from China and other countries.
How do the windmills hold up in a hurricane?
They do fine. They've got them out offshore in a number of places, and including like up in the North Sea, which is one of the most harsh conditions off the coast of Ireland, and they hold up fine.
There's no book here. Dan Chu is our guest. The website. What's a good website we can send our listeners to?
Sure. Yeah, if you go to sierraclub.org and then search for Our Wild America, there's a homepage for my campaign. And the Our Wild America campaign, we're working to secure permanent protections like wilderness and national monument designations for the best wild places on our federal lands. What we talked about today was continuing to push to keep dirty fuels in the ground where it's, we think, inappropriate to take them out of the ground. Connecting people with nature nearby. We do, Sierra Club gets over 200,000 people out every year on local outings where they go out and do hikes and service projects and that kind of thing. And then fourth, we work with a number of groups to protect wildlife and forests so that, so that we can continue to have healthy wildlife throughout the country. So that's kind of the scope of what I'm working on.
And I mean, I know that we can only do what we can do, and in our own community, I know that the folks who are looking at our rivers and our water, mostly our air is fine, I think, from what I understand, but our waters are the problem. So they're doing whatever they need to do to undo the harm that was caused. In our case, it was, I think, mostly from fertilizers or from the trickle down effect of some of the
bottling companies.
Yeah, there's a whole list of things, but anyway. So I guess what I'm trying to say is each community seems to be doing something, and together we're all making a big difference, I think. So your efforts, your war cry is being heard. We are hearing it, and we are trying to make a difference.
Well, great. No, I we've got a number of members and staff in Florida, and I think what you're talking about is working on these local ordinances to make sure that pesticides and fertilizers are better managed so they don't get in the water. And it's just been a really heartening thing to see people, take responsibility and leadership to make sure.
And again, just to go back to the politics, that's why I don't want to hear about the politics. I want to hear, a scientist tell me this is what it looks like, or better yet, you go outside, you can see it yourself.
Yeah.
You could go to the river and ask anybody who's been there, who's been here for 30 years, say, what's different about this river now than was back then? Well, there's more algae, there's less fish. Okay. Well, what can we do to put it back to the way it used to be? Simple as that. You don't have to convince me that I'm responsible for global warming, but you can convince me that maybe the fertilizer I'm putting on my lawn could be done differently, or I could use something different. I think that's an easier sell than trying to convince everybody that for some reason we're all, because it's a hard sell, especially on a cold winter like we've just gone through. So.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Dan, thank you for what you're doing, and especially thank you for taking time out of your day. I know you're busy at the Capitol, and it was a great conversation, very, very invigorating. Thank you for being on the air with us.
Yeah, well, thank you for the time, and appreciate that people like you are, really care about this stuff and are trying to learn more about it every day. So thanks so much, and hope anytime you guys want to chat, just look me up.
All right, let's hope that your 8-year-old grows up to have a beautiful, clean world.
Yeah.
All I want is a world for the children. Green is the world. What was the line again? Green is the world.
Was green to me.
Green is the world was green to me. I don't remember the line. Anyway, thank you, Dan. Thank you for being on the air with us today.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Legally Yours, brought to you by Fuller & Fuller Attorneys at Law. On the air every Wednesday morning at 10:30 a.m. with John Fuller, a board-certified civil trial lawyer for over 25 years. John welcomes your questions, from business to complex family matters to legal disputes. So tune in every Wednesday morning at 10:30 a.m. for Legally Yours with John Fuller, right here on WOCA 1370 AM and 96.3 FM, The Source.
Gene Powell Pasture Mowing. Our tractor services include bush hog, disking, front end loader, box blade, and stump grinding. We also have zero-turn mowers for the smaller paddocks, aisleways, fence rows, and lawn care. Fence row spraying is also available for weed control. We are licensed and insured. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing, 352-629-2440, or online at powellgene, Gene, at yahoo.com. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing.
Habitat for Humanity of Marion County is a ministry dedicated to improving lives by providing affordable and decent housing. Help them help others by visiting the Habitat for Humanity Ocala Restore at 926 Northwest 27th Avenue. To schedule a donation, give us a call at 401-0075 and we'll come pick it up. For more information, visit ocalarestore.org. Habitat for Humanity of Marion County. Building homes, building hope, building community.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
So if you lose weight, will your cellulite disappear? Nope. Losing weight can diminish cellulite because there's less fat to pop out, but it will never go away entirely. Marriage isn't always exciting, and couples who understand that and who are confident they can stay happy with their partner even when things are dull are more likely to last. Talk as if your grandma is listening. Anything you wouldn't mention in front of her, don't mention at work.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
You've got a garden and we've got a show for you called You've Got a Garden with your host, Master Gardener Carol Ann Baldwin. Carol Ann answers your questions about your flowers, your veggies, your grass, your trees, even questions about your bugs. And she's only on WOCA, so don't miss Carol Ann Baldwin and You've Got a Garden each Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on WOCA The Source.
Hey, you guys, this is Lou, and if you don't want to be a dirty little bird sitting on the curb eating dirty earthworms, you better head on down to Dairy Queen Silver Springs. They got the best, the juiciest, tastiest char-grilled hot dogs, burgers, solid filet of fish and chicken, and 90% fat-free pulled pork barbecue. That's a little sweet and a little spicy. You know, Dairy Queen doesn't use processed and formed junk like the competition. So come on down to Dairy Queen Silver Springs, home of the real $5 lunch.
Your official news source, WOCA.
This is a public notice. Local residents can now save thousands of dollars on their next car, truck, or SUV. It's not a tent sale, because no tent is big enough to hold this many cars. It's OcalaForSale.com. Say goodbye to sticker shock. OcalaForSale.com has thousands of vehicles with no stickers at all. But hurry, don't walk, don't run. Just sit down and log on to OcalaForSale.com. Prices and inventory change daily. Offer does not include dealer upcharge, undercutting, rust proofing, factory surcharge, or delivery fee. See website for details.
Hi, I'm Yvette, and I'm here to tell you a few things about ABC Frederick's Appliance. They sell not only new, but used guaranteed appliances. When you call ABC Frederick's Appliance, they will provide service on what they sell and any appliances that you own. ABC Frederick's Appliance is located in Bellevue, right over the railroad tracks. Call 352-629-5181. That's 352-629-5181. That's 352-629-5181.